you have a microscope, say an Am Scope or one of the other alternatives, one of the cheap ones that has a top port that you could attach a camera to, but the cameras are just too dang expensive. I'm talking about cameras such as these. $654.99, $724.99. I'm not saying all of these fit on an Am Scope microscope, but they're going to fit some type of microscope. The benefit about them is that most of them are dual output, where they have HDMI out and USB 3.0 or USB 2 out. Some are only USB out, USB 3, USB 2. Bro, I just bought the microscope. Why can't I use my camera? The good news is you can. Let me show you how. Typically, you're going to have to buy some type of adapter. I think to get a Sony camera, at least E-mount onto a microscope, they might make a direct adapter. I haven't found it. So I think you need an E-mount to Nikon and then Nikon to the microscope mount. I think that is the route that you need to go, but I'm not entirely sure. That's one way to do it. One other such way is the way that I chose to do it. So go ahead, take off your lens, and you might have to dig around. I don't know how often you use it. If you only ever keep your lens on your camera, then like I do, you're probably not going to have your body cap anywhere unless you take good care of your stuff and organize it, know where it all is. But you're going to want to get that body cap. Okay, after you get your body cap, you're going to want to find the top part of your scope, which means taking it off. If you have the same model Am Scope as I do, which that will be in the description which one it is, you'll have a thing that looks something like this. I'd considered putting it on the top, but we're fairly far, especially if you consider adjusting it up and having your camera mounted there. It's a little mount, or it might tend to rock more, and you're going to be far away from your focal point. So I didn't opt for that option. I thought, oh, well, maybe I could thread that out and find a way. I'm like, oh, well, that's in the way, so let's not do that. I even considered undoing this part here and mounting to that, and yet again, that big long thing there, the big long tube is there to go in and bang into the sensor inside of the camera. If it'll fit in that far, I'm not sure. I'm like, all right, what's next? Well, you have 2 set screws for this part. So you can take the whole top off, and you have that on the top part of your microscope. Thing is, that sticks up a little, and then yet again, after you check out that part, you have 3 more or 2 possibly set screws at the very bottom. You can look around the edge. Let's go in for a closer look. You can see 3 set screws, 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you consider this one, take this piece off of your microscope. You have that little center hole. Now, what you can do, that side is a little big, plus it would still have a bit that it could drop and push in whenever it's sitting on top of the microscope. So let's say this is the top of the microscope for argument's sake. I would still have a little ways to drop. It doesn't seem real solid just sitting. It'll wiggle on here. Even if you glued it, it might tend to wiggle. So what I did was opted for the bottom part. You have this ring sticking up from the very top port of your microscope. What I did was lined it up and draw a perfect circle on your body cap. We're not going to build this thing now, but I will at least show you. I got it as centered as I could. This is a long through hole marker for drawing like through hole and stuff, so I'm going to get it as centered as possible. kept it straight up and down, and drew myself a circle. It did cut through part of the S and the Y whenever I had done this, and it looked pretty centered. That was a good part to start, but that's tracing the that's the inner diameter. You have to go to the outer diameter, which from here to where the ring sticks out in here, plus your set screws don't go in that far, they're like out here. So drill that out. The size bit that I used was a 3/4 bit. Got it as center as I could, drilled through the body cap without the rear lens cap attached, of course, and drilled through it. Once I had the hole, I took a large file and cleaned the hole out as perfect as I could till that fit down over the top of my microscope. And you end up with this. So let's zoom it back out a little. And there's that center ring that my body cap fits down over. If you're like me and don't have an extra E-mount rear lens cap laying around that you don't use on occasion, okay, well, if you can find yourself, either order yourself an extra body cap, extra E-mount rear lens cap, or find yourself one of the P or K mount they're commonly called, one of these. When you get it on there, it will lock on, and it's a little fidgety, so you may have to add some little ramps to get it to want to spin into place, but it will go on there and spin into place without too much problem. Does it work? Well, let's take the stuff off of our camera and find out. Take our lens off. We're going to put the camera on here like that and turn it on. Another thing, make sure you have it set so it will do whatever it does without the lens attached, because there's no electronics in this. And don't make the mistake of trying to put it on there so when the camera is locked here, when it's locked, it's here. And what will happen when you try to take it off, it's going to hit, and all of a sudden you got to bust loose the adhesive or whatever it is that you attach to the top of your scope with. Me personally, I did it this way, second time around, and it's on there. Let's grab our MacBook Pro donor board that we have here, and we'll flip over to another scene. I need to plug in my HDMI still. After I do that, we will be able to see the camera, and voila. Now, there's a couple ways to adjust this. You have your back adjustment here, and then your focuser knob here on each side. It's in this general area, okay? And then you have this adjustment. When you adjust this down, you can't bottom it out, but you can get down a little bit. This is about the highest that we can go. And, well, that's not the highest. That is one of the top parts of the focal range. Here is the first. Let me wind this up as high as it will go. Okay, so there is our maximum view. We have a little bit of vignetting. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that with clear image zoom. If you take it into about 1.6 and set your autofocus manual focus button in your settings, let's get rid of the light. Set your autofocus manual focus, a second one on the gear, go to custom key shoot, go over to 2, AF/MF button, set it to zoom. I usually keep it for autofocus manual focus because I use this camera often, but when going to use it for this, I'm going to set it to zoom till I get a spare A5100 or A6000, whatever I end up with other than my A6300. We have it set to zoom. We're going to hit our menu to back out, and when we flip it up from AEL to AF/MF, we hit the button, we have our clear image zoom. We could even go in further if we wanted, but I like the 1.6. It's kind of the maximum for or the minimum for where I had my body cap centered. We could also go in possibly very usable at 1.4, but 1.6 gets rid enough of it where I just have that little bit in the corner. All right, there's 1.6. We'll set it there. And now that is with this part, this knob adjusted all the way up, and our focuser here. And then if we drop it down, as we drop down, we can keep getting different levels of focus, but we can't take it all the way down. There's a point at which this will outrun what the focuser on this. There's a point at which this knob will outrun what the focuser on the sides of the scope can do versus this adjustment down. The down will outrun where your focuser is, and it's about one whole turn from the bottom, like a whole turn. And now you have this adjustment too on this part here that you can unlock here, and it's like an arm that hangs down. I tend to keep it fairly level. But what you can do there, you also have an adjustment up and down on the back. We're going to drop the scope all the way to the bottom and see if we can get anything there. You will have to adjust up further, and you have even less of a range when it's bottomed out like that, but you do get much, much closer into these components. You have even less of a range. So I would say the good range is somewhere about halfway up and down this post this way, and then you have some adjustment both ways. For getting in closer to your components. And let's not forget one final thing. We do have some room left with the clear image zoom, so you can get in just that little bit further. Find a good sweet spot where it's going to work for you. And that is your Sony E-Mount to Am Scope adapter. I'll turn the light on so we can see it. It's just an E-Mount, a Sony body cap where I filed out the hole after drilling it, and now my camera will lock right on. Very easy, very simple. It lets me get my microscope up on screen and send it out to the stream, out to record, without having to rely on something such as this, because yes, I can get in here fairly detailed, but that's the max. If I drop the arm down, okay, we can get in a little further. Maybe it's going to focus. It'll take its time. And I think, yeah, that's as close as I can get, unless I want to start jacking the board up. And then we'll reach the minimum focus distance of my Sony camera with this lens. We can get in there quite a bit. That's about what I can do. Compare that to the earlier shots of the microscope. This here is I'll try and wind it up a little. It's tough to see. We could probably take the scope out some. That is the poor man's E-Mount to Am Scope. It lets me get work that I'm working on under the microscope up on the screen, and now I can send it out to wherever I need to. So there you have it. Like I said, E-Mount back cap. Let's not forget that. Let's take a look there real quick again. If you're going to use an old PK, whatever they're called, it is a little bit fidgety, but it will lock onto an E-Mount body cap. And if you have the back lens cap, well then, hurrah for you. I need to order some more to make life easier for myself. But E-Mount body cap, a back E-Mount lens cap will work perfectly. Anyhow, it's a short video. If you enjoyed it, if it helped you out, anything of the sort, think about subscribing. Give one of them old thumbers. Find somebody to give one for you too. That's two. It does help out more than you know. If I didn't mention, you will need a pattern for the top of what your scope looks like. And what I mounted it down with was your typical 3M tape, which is just literally a roll of this. You can get it in skinny, like different widths. I made a simple pattern. Thanks so much for watching. If you like whatever, making stuff work, making stuff that you don't have, finding a way for it to work like I do, well, there you go. That's what I tend to do here quite a bit. Not all the time, but hey, this works for now. I can keep my scope safe. I don't have to rip it back off. And let me see if I can give you somewhat of a view. I should be able to. So here's the scope. You can see that literally all that I did. There's some 3M tape right there holding that down. All right, thanks again for watching, checking out the video. Clicking that link, coming over, hanging out. These are them awkward parts at the end where you're trying to wrap stuff up and it's just not working for you at all. I'm really good at those. It's not an acquired skill. It's just natural. Believe it. Anyhow. Like, share, subscribe, whatever. Do your poor man's E-Mount to Am Scope. Leave it in the comments below. Leave me a comment. Do something. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for checking this out.